What's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about the ultimate guide to the Izuku Midoriya Challenger deck. So the goals of this video are easy. We're going to ask what is physically inside the box, where I do a small box opening and show you exactly what you're going to be getting. From there, we're going to talk about the strategies and tactics of all the cards inside. We're going to look at what an optimized list is if you take two of the Challenger decks and combine them together. And then I want to talk about my top 10 recommendations for upgrading your Challenger deck. But before we can get too deep in, we got to see what's in the box. All right, let's open this bad boy up. Here is the deck. And I always open these from the bottom. So what comes in these is simply you get the deck proper. We don't need this anymore. You get the deck proper inside of one of these little things. And you get the collector's booster, which we will open at the very end of this demonstration. So we get the booklet, which if you guys are interested, you can scan there to as a good start, as well as a bit of a checklist to see what comes inside of your Challenger series, as well as the alternate art versions of them all, which is very cool. And it's got them like marked off, so you know like what comes in what. It's very neat. And then we've got the deck proper, which we will thumb through card by card. Just real quick. Let's put that down. Looking for a nice, neat little pull tab. I'm not seeing one. Oh, there it is, right there. And whoop. Okay. Nice. Ruffle. And let's take a look. So we've got the Midoriya, which is double-sided. This looks good. And then double of the action, wielding all for one. Or sorry, one for all, excuse me. Double tattered costume. Double bullet kick. Fajin flurry, that one's pretty good. Full cowling 45 impact Detroit smash. First wielder as our foil foundation. Triple Deku's takedown. I guess I should hold it down here, right? 4 copies of pin force focus black whip shot. Okay. 4 rapid rescue. I like this one a lot. I think that was very good. 4 smokescreen charge. 4 creative counter. 4 eighth wielder to help you draw some cards. 4 expression of friendship. 4 black whip. Fifth wielder black whip. 4 danger sense. 3 second wielder. 3 float. 4 sixth wielder. And 3 third wielder. Nice and easy. And then for the thing that we're all really waiting for is the collector's booster. 1 collector booster in every one. Every single card, as you can see from your little book, can potentially be an alternate art or a foil. And so, whoa, eighth wielder is huge. Creative counter. Here's the alt. Tattered costume as the alt. 7th wielder float. 7th wielder float. neat that we got them both, right? And so there it is. There's everything that comes inside of the deck. Okay, so now that we know what comes inside the box, let's talk a little bit about the strategies and tactics you get. So Midoriya on the Move and Midoriya Quirks Unleashed are 2 sides of the same card, and they are a little bit complex, with the front side being all about utilizing your stage to give +3 or -3 speed, as well as having a huge safety net of reducing the damage of an attack down to 1 if you happen to have a Vestige card in your hand. But then Quirks Unleashed is all about that kill, being able to commit 2 foundations for +3/+3, and you can do this any number of times per return as long as you have the foundations to do so, as well as a slight defensive ability of one time you kind of get a free block. So your game plan normally goes in two phases. Phase number one, build up a pretty large board, defending yourself with On the Move, and then transforming into Quirks Unleashed and playing a huge attack with so many stats that you can't possibly deal with. So let's talk about the tactics inside the deck as they relate to each side of the character card. So these are the cards that I've pulled out in order to showcase how cool the abilities on the move are. Starting with Fajin Flurry, a 4/3 0 mid for 7 that whenever you use Midoriya's ability of Commit a Foundation to get +3 speed, you can then respond with Fajin Flurry after it receives a speed bonus to then grab a momentum, and then it itself has EX3. So then you spin that momentum on the EX3 and you grab an extra momentum. So for the low cost of committing 1 foundation and spinning the momentum that Fajin Flurry gets you for free, you've got a 4 difficulty, 3 check, 6 mid for 7 that netted you a positive momentum. Combining that with things like 3rd wielder Fajin and 5th wielder Black Whip as incredible targets for you to commit to use your ability for the either +3 or -3, with 3rd wielder Fajin snapping itself to momentum, or Black Whip being able to change the zone of this attack, not just yours, but even your rivals. The amount of free resources that you get on this side of the character are very, very good. And the last card I have on here is Wielding One for All. One of the goals we have on the moves side is to make sure that we have vestiges inside of our hand, and one of the best ones happens to be Wielding One for All because of how much utility that it has. And we're going to talk way more about this card later on in the video. But the real excitement of the character happens on the Quirks Unleashed side. This is the side of the character that really gets the job done to help you close out the game. And if you look at on the move, it actually asks you to have face down cards in your card pool in order for you to transform. And so what I want to focus on now is the tactics that are all based on face down cards, with my personal favorite one being Rapid Rescue. Response card pool, your turn, flip. After you play a foundation, build it. So I play Rapid Rescue as a 5-5 high for 5, great stats. And then I play any foundation that I want out of my hand, snap build it, instantly build it, and then flip this card in my card pool, making my transformation cost 1 less. In a similar idea, we've got Deku's Swift Takedown, which is after this attack is not blocked, draw a card, flip this attack after it resolves. It's asking my rival to interact with my cards. And then of course we've got One for All, full cowling, 45% impact Detroit Smash. Huge name, great ability, and it has the echo keyword, which says spend a momentum. You're allowed to replay this move, but after it resolves, it flips in your card pool, leaving it face down, which is exactly where we want it to be. And then we got Bullet Kick, which is our ultra rare, which has a ton of uses. Mainly, it's static, saying face down cards in your card pool do not count towards progressive difficulty to play this card. So after you have flipped all of these cards in your card pool, you can then transform, pump up your next massive move, and then Bullet Kick is still only on a 5. But it does even more than just being your powerful 3 bomb finisher. It also helps you get there with the response after this attack is blocked. Your rival spends momentum, so it puts itself face down in your card pool. And it also says after it deals damage, you can go pick up a non-attack card like Wielding One for All, a vestige card, a card that we want, a really, really powerful, strong card, or even picking up another foundation defensive piece. It could be important. And those are just attacks that synergize with it. Now we're going to talk about the foundations with things like Smoke Screen, adding a card from your hand in your card pool face down. Giving this attack -4 speed does not necessarily matter because all we care about is having the card face down in our card pool, and the next one's going to get massive anyway, so it doesn't matter. Second wielder, saying enhance flip, 1 attack in your card pool. This attack, it gets +3 speed. Again, huge long chains, culminating to a transform and then a massive blowout. This card just helps with that. And then we have Expression of Friendship, which says response tenacious, sacrifice. After you make a check, if you have a face down card in your card pool, that check gets +2, meaning it is a prime target for you to commit to use your form ability on Quirks Unleashed and make sure that you can pass the 1 check that you are trying to play, pass that 1 attack after you've given it, +12/+12. And then the last tactics that I want to talk about is just Wielding One for All. We talked about it at the very beginning of the video, but this card is incredibly, incredibly strong, and it utilizes these vestige cards in a really, really good way. With things like 8th Wielder being able to draw for every 2 vestiges you have in your board, Danger Sense being able to flip for -2 speed, and then using Wielding One for All to unflip it so that your defensive pieces are back again. Same thing with 7th Wielder Float, Response Flip. After the start of the end phase, add 1 face down card from your card pool to your hand, letting you reuse the attack cards that you've played. And because the word vestige is a keyword, we then get creative counter for response flip after you block with the foundation with a keyword, build it. All of this goes back to that phase 1 plan of building up an absolutely massive stage for a OTK style strategy. Wielding One for All lets you expedite this extremely well, especially with its ability of enhance, remove, choose X options. X equals half the number of differently named vestiges in your stage, rounded down. You may choose the same option multiple times. So imagine we're getting +12/+12 by committing a bunch of foundations on our board, and I've got a couple wielding One for Alls in my hand. If the foundations that I committed were all vestiges, I could give it an additional +3 speed, +3 damage, or draw a card based on the amount of vestiges that I have. So this card just exacerbates that 1 turn KO that we are looking for. Okay, so we know what's inside of the Challenger deck. We know how the Challenger deck wants to play, but what happens whenever we want to take and combine 2 of these decks together? Well, this is the list that I suggest. If the only cards that you have gathered are the cards from inside the Challenger deck, this is the list. So obviously, the best attack in the deck is just Fodge and Flurry. It's at a 4 of, but I really like Pinpoint, Focus, Black Whip, Shot, and Rapid Rescue just because of how easy they are to flip, and especially because Black Whip Shot is a 4 difficulty. From there, we take the other 5 diffs that come in the deck: Bullet Kick, Deku's Swift Takedown, and One for All, Full Cowling, 45% Impact Detroit Smash, and we toss them at a 2 of. We have a slightly lower attack count than normal just because of the amount of stats that Quirks Unleashed can give you on his transformed side, and so we actually need less attacks to close out the game because of this, and so all this is going to do is make our checking way better. If you notice all the way on the sideboard, though, the only attack that I took out was Smoke Screen Charge. And yes, this is a 4 difficulty attack, but it does have a low block, and I'm not in love with the if you've got a face down damage pump idea of this card. If it flipped cards in my card pool for the damage pump, I think I'd be way more on board. But because of that, I decided to cut it. But at the same time, if you have played with one of these combined decks and you want to make some changes, then obviously Smoke Screen Charge can go back in. Moving on to the foundations, everything's a 4 of just because of the limited options that we have, but I did want to talk about the 2 cards that I didn't put at max copies. And that's 7th Wielder Float, which has a bit of a slow ability of during the end phase, I could flip it, a resource that I really want to stay face up because of synergistic things with 8th Wielder and wielding One for All. In order to add a card back to my hand, it's kind of slow, not when I've got other copies of the attacks in my deck. And then 1st Wielder One for All. This card is a bit of a backup strategy in case we don't get the face down cards in our card pool, because after you transform, you can flip it. Again, we want to keep it face up and then ready a resource. So it's like the Quirks Unleashed transform was like 1 cheaper, but we want those foundations face up so that we can see that they are indeed vestiges with unique names. And after you've played a couple games with the combined deck, here are my top 10 recommended upgrades for upgrading your Midoriya Challenger deck. Now, I've decided to do my upgrades on the life symbol because that is the one symbol that every single card in your Challenger deck shares. So obviously, if you're looking at air, good, void, or water upgrades, these might be helpful, but we're really focusing on the life symbol. My first 2 recommendations are probably the most important for this deck, and that is 1, Defiant Stance and Trickster's Blessing. Both of these cards have an incredible ability whenever they are committed for a cost, with Defiant Stance being able to re-ready itself, so it counts as 2 separate resources. Incredible whenever you are giving +3 or -3 speed, whether you are spending these resources to transform into Quirks Unleashed, or if I've got 2 Defiant Stances, I could use Quirks Unleashed, commit the 2 Defiance, re-ready them, commit them again. I used 2 foundations for +6 speed and +6 damage. That's crazy. And then we've got Trickster's Blessing, which says on the move side, after it's committed during an attack, add a card from either player's discard pile to the bottom of their deck. So you can either add foundations to the bottom of your deck to making sure that your checks at the end of the game are very consistent, or you can add problem cards from your rivals onto the bottom of their deck to make sure that they don't have their really important combo pieces. My next 2 foundations are New Training Method and Urumeshi's Perseverance. New Training Method is very, very good in this deck because it says after you build it, you get to build an additional card. So not only is that going to help you spend more resources to both transform and OTK on Quirks Unleashed, but it also has the added ability of Response Commit Flip. After you check a foundation, one that has the word vestige on it, you may add it to your hand so that when you are on the move side, you have that panic button readily available to you. And then that same idea of Urumeshi's Perseverance. Inside of the combined deck, we have a lowered attack count, and our deck can give us some free momentum off of Fodge and Flurry. So using the ability of Form, Remove, spend a momentum, add a card from your discard pile to your hand, if we have a move that we know that they can't block, or I have a combo piece, or Bullet Kick is the one that's going to get the job done, I can just use Urumeshi's Perseverance in between my attacks in order to close out the game. On to the actions and assets that I recommend. Number one is just the Dark Tournament Looms. As I said before, snapping momentum is very easy. And sometimes because of the fact that Fajin Flurry's momentum is random, we have some key pieces that we want to not get locked there. And so as a 1/5/2 mid-block, enhance, remove, add a card from your momentum to your hand, and then redraw a card. This card just says, if I needed that card in my momentum that was randomly stolen from the top, I can make sure that I have it. And then on the other side, we've got Potato, which says response flip after a rival would play a non-character ability that would reduce the damage of your attack, cancel it. Imagine this scenario. You take and you toss your entire stage into an attack that gets plus 12 speed and plus 12 damage, and you send it at your rival. And the first thing they do is destroy a foundation, put your damage to 0. Potato not only builds a foundation for you because the asset that was face up flips and becomes face down, so the game recognizes it as a bonus foundation, but it also cancels that damage reduction, meaning that our OTK strategy is a little better protected. On to the first two attacks that I recommend, we've got Canister Creation Strike and Tasty Riff. Both of these foundations are here for the Vestige idea. With Enhance, lose 2 health, remove a foundation, build a foundation with a printed difficulty of X from your discard pile, X equals the removed foundation's printed difficulty plus 1. Meaning that after I use one of these Vestiges that want to flip on their face, I can play Canister Creation Strike, lose my 2 health, and remove a face down. The printed difficulty of a face down card is 0. So I can replace my used face down cards for face up 1 difficulties. And then Tasty Riff is an all-around amazing card. It says if this attack deals damage, which my character gives a ton of speed to, I get to draw 3 free cards and then gain 3 applause counters so that we can utilize the bottom enhance of the card, which says choose 1 card not named Tasty Riff with a printed difficulty of X or less in your discard pile and add it to your hand or build it. X is the number of applause counters that we have on our character. So this card really is a swift army knife. After I've landed a Tasty Riff, if I need to build foundations, I can build them in with that first enhance. Or I have hit a couple times, I can start adding attack cards to my hand. Or even better, I can add 1 for all to my hand to then be used to pump stats even more. And then my last 2 upgrades are just Vindicating Smash and Jawjammer. And these are cards that want to utilize that stat pump really, really well. With Vindicating Smash says if its damage is 15 or greater, which we can find easy, I draw 2 bonus cards and my rival is going to discard a card. And one of the main ways to fight against this deck is by my rival going to deadlock. I'm giving a ton of speed, and so they should build out their stage to match me. And so with the deadlock enhance of my rival discards an extra card, this card draws me 2 cards, discards them 2 cards, and hits them for 15 kind of for free. This card is a very effective bomb inside of this deck. And then the other one being Jawjammer, a 4/3 2 high for 4, but it has the throw keyword, which says that even if this attack is completely blocked, it still deals half damage rounded up. Imagine me taking and adding 12 extra damage to this move. It says if they don't have a way to deal with the throw, if they are at 8, sometimes 10 health, it's still game over. And so having cards that wear your stat pumps really well is very important. So my final thoughts on the Challenger deck are this deck is incredibly fun, it is competent, it is cohesive, and it is competitive. I highly recommend you picking this deck up, even if it's just to experiment on the deck building side. If you have any questions or any recommendations on the things that I said, please leave them in the comments down below. Would love to have a bit of a conversation with you guys. And as always, thank you much for watching, and I wish you well.